In this video, I will be reviewing a recent purchase of a vintage cassette deck, the Aiwa AD 6800. There are a few marks on the right hand side panel, but nothing too major. The back panel seems to be in very good condition considering the age of the deck. There are line in and out sockets, as well as a DIN socket, a DIN output level switch, and voltage 120 volt or 240 volt switch also. Being in the UK, the switch is set at 240 volts. Let's have another look at the front fascia plate. This is in excellent cosmetic condition and a joy to look at. The tape transport functions are controlled by the piano keys. Very 1970s, I love them. A classic design that oozes quality. Quality that you just don't get nowadays unless you spend a small fortune, and in some cases a very large fortune. The front fascia is all metal. The use of plastic was clearly minimised. This deck was purchased as not working, so let's test it and see what happens. It has a type 1 normal tape already in it. Well, we'll put it back in and see what happens. When loading the cassette, it should automatically load, which thankfully it has. I like the flip down cassette door, which was a popular 1970s cassette deck design feature. Next, I will test the tape transport functions. Play auto stops. If you look at the left VU meter, you will notice that when I press the play key, the left VU meter peak needle is pegged. Clearly, something not quite right here. This could be an indication that there is a dirty switch contact due to oxidization. This is a common problem, especially in vintage cassette decks. As you can see, neither the fast forward or rewind functions work correctly. I suspect this is likely to be a belt issue of some sort. I will now try the line inputs by putting the deck into record mode. This will indicate if the VU meters are working correctly. A little bit of hot chocolate, you sexy thing. Quite fitting for this cassette deck. Well, something seems to be happening. Although there seems to be a very large difference between the peak and average readings, which in my experience is not normal and will require further investigation. Next, I will try the front fascia switches. In tape EQ settings, which there are 3. Next is the bias switch. This is used during the recording process. A light is illuminated in each of the fine bias control knobs, clearly indicating which tape type has been selected. Next we have the switch for Dolby NR, Type B and MPX filter. Next is the line selector, mic, line and DIN, plus test. There is a DIN record and playback socket on the front panel for ease of use if the deck is in a cabinet and access to the back panel is restricted. I will take the top cover off now to see what condition the rubber belts are in and also the condition of the electronic components. There are only 5 screws holding the top cover in place, 4 large screws, 2 each side, and a small screw on the back panel. Probably a good idea to disconnect the line input cables. Now the other side. Now the moment of truth. As you can see, it's quite congested in there. Not like the more modern cassette decks. Solid state electronics and engineering at its best. This cassette deck weighs in at a very healthy 10 kg, which is hardly surprising when you consider the amount of metal and electronic components contained within. Unfortunately, all of these electronic components and the spaghetti junction of wires makes these decks a bit of a nightmare to work on. We are now in the location where the belt should be. There is no belt, which is probably the main reason for the tape transport not operating correctly, although it is likely to have some electronic issues also. I suspect that this deck has not been used for a very long time, and consequently will need a full service to bring it back to its former glory. I find the build quality of the 1970s cassette decks to be very satisfying. I intend to keep this deck and add it to my collection. It will be taking a trip to the cassette repairman that I use, and I suspect it will keep him out of mischief for quite a while. The electronic components will need to be tested, switches lubricated, and replacement belts fitted. This deck was manufactured between 1977 and 1979. It has a good specification for its age. Frequency response 20 Hz to 19 kHz. Wow and flutter 0.05%. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Subscribe for notifications of similar content and smash the like button.